it with the bear slug, told me to shoot it into this oak stump, and it went into the oak stump maybe about 3 or 4 inches around, and the whole back of the oak stump was completely gone.
Oh yeah, back phase deformation. And yeah, you're very right. Pants on the ground. Moose are very, very dangerous, but they are rarer than bears. So there's that.
Yeah, it depends on where you're at. Like up in the panhandle of Idaho, moose are really common.
But the moose are terrifying because, like, if one picks a fight with your truck, the moose wins.
You know it.
Yeah, a moose is bigger than a horse, so they're pretty incredible animals.
That's what they say if you hit an elk, if and you're don't see it in the road, it'll just destroy your car.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're like 6 foot tall at the shoulder, and then their head is another like 4, 5, 6 feet, and then they have their huge fucking crown on top of that. Like, yeah, no, and it can be like 6 feet wide. So if they don't like you, that's a bad day.
Yeah.
Isn't it ironic that the most beautiful creatures out of nature are also the most deadly, right? Cougars, moose, elk, bears, wolves.
Did you guys ever watch that Grizzly Man documentary?
You talking about the guy who lives with a couple bears? I saw one where he's with like a polar bear. Apparently his wife is not very liked by it.
Oh, the polar bears, I feel like they're more unpredictable, and maybe it's just because we don't live around them as much, but they seem to be like, they seem to mess with humans way more than grizzlies do overall.
What's even worse, though, is that you can have a hybrid of a polar bear and grizzly, and they are bigger and more aggressive than both.
Oh, I didn't know they were bigger. Oh,
are you talking about the one where the guy's up in Alaska and thinks that he's part of the family of grizzly bears and then gets eaten?
Yeah, well, it's a little more complicated than that. He's in a group of them that they regularly get
for a while, but he knew that he was going to get eaten by the one bad one, and then it happened.
He thought he was a bear whisperer because of this one group of bears that was regularly used to human interaction. And he ended up deciding he was going to go to this remote island where they were starving to death because he was going to bring awareness and bear whisper these guys and save them, is what he said, even though he didn't bring food for them or anything. And he ended up getting stalked and eaten. But he's like rolling around with these bears in Denali, these huge grizzly bears, and like interacting with them on a daily basis before he goes to the island. It's just kind of an interesting story, regardless of his stupidity in it. Because he had absolutely zero training. He did minimal research before he went into doing this.
He was a legitimate temporary bear whisperer, but at the same time, he was absolutely reckless and idiotic and got himself a Darwin Award.
He wasn't a bear whisperer. He just he was interacting with bears.
That were some sort of self-defense at the very least.
The bears were getting fed by the rangers out there. So they were used to being well supplied. They weren't starving. All those things.
A big difference.
Yeah, they probably grew up with people around them. Yeah.
Hey guys, so I gotta jump. So if I could,
documentary. Sorry about.
Oh, I was just gonna say I gotta jump here. Wanted to drop in a quick plug. I built a website, thefounders.life, and the whole point of the website is for us to have our own community, which is not censored in any way, where we can all join and have forums and discuss this in another format off of YouTube. So thefounders.life, if any of you want to go there, I've got playlists on everything from electroculture to Tartaria,
private chat, and I will bring it up. And sorry for interrupting. Please continue. And we got to show this.
Cool. Yeah. Because, I really think that the more we can come together and gather together as a community and share these ideas and concepts and information, we're going to touch more people, and more people are going to wake up to what, that the fact that history is not perfect by any means. And that, and something real quick before I go, we're talking about earlier was the highly mineralized water and salt water, right? That would cover all these areas within the mud flood. And what I've been studying really hard is the area of Spanish Peaks in Colorado, and then also Shiprock in New Mexico. And they're actually, these 2 points are not far from each other. But the Spanish Peaks area, if you look at Spanish Peak from Google, it looks like a medicine wheel of walls going out. And so the same thing with Shiprock. It looks like it was like some big castle in the center with all these walls going out, and these walls are super high. And it looks as if, the geologists say that it is, a lot of it is quartzite in the center. So, it got quartzite is obviously, petrified material. So anyway, just something to check out. I think that similar to the star forts, there were areas where they built these. I mean, these things are like 2-3 stories tall or longer, and some of these walls go for like 5 or 6 miles or more. And then the one called that goes down through Stonewall, Colorado, that literally goes all the way from Canada to Mexico. And you see all these portions of walls all over the place, and then you see all this silt and stuff that has come up against them from obvious mud floods. So anyway, just something to ponder, something I wanted to throw at BurnEYe, because I think this coincides with some of the stuff that he's looking into with the geoglyphs and stuff, because literally right outside of Stonewall, there's a huge geoglyph right there of a Native American's head and a little bear head. In that area. So anyway, check out my channel. I've got a couple videos on that, but please, everybody, go join the founders.life, and let's keep the conversations going on these topics.
Can you pretty please put the link in the private chat right now, and I will post it in the live chat for everyone.
Yeah, I'll do it right now. Yep, thanks.
And thank you. As well as the link to your channel, please.
Yeah.
All your links before you go. You got to post.
Okay, man. Yeah, so here's the Founders Life link. I'll drop that in. It's thefounders.life for those listening. And there's that one. And then my YouTube channel is Antediluvian America, just like the name.
Why can I not find? Oh, there we go. There we go. My computer's just slow. And boom. There we go. Oh my goodness. What? Stupid twitchiness of my fingers. Hey, I did get it right. Okay. Here we go. And
awesome.
On the Facebooks, on the Twitch, on the Twitter, on the YouTubes. It's posted everywhere now, as well of course, make sure you go subscribe to William at Antediluvian American on YouTube as well.
America,
sorry. Here we go. There it is. Kaboom. I spelled it right. That's right.
Yeah, right on. All right, guys. Peace out. Look forward to talking to y'all again soon.
For
Great
sure.
talking to
Much
you, Will.
love.
Nice to meet you.
Thank
Take
you.
All right, peace.
Thanks a lot.
Have a blessed rest of your weekend. And I will make sure myself to click on that link on the founders.life, and we'll create an account.
You can post his YouTube channel too, or somebody could do that. Oh, you did. Thank you.
Yes,
You did.
I definitely did. You gotta go subscribe.
And I already subscribed to Founders, so get your butts over there. I'm big on the community discussion too. I've talked about the idea of a PMI or PMA a lot, and that my big thing is it takes a village. I feel like in some format, even if we end up forming smaller communities, this is something that we should be trying to do. I mean, what if we could all have a research facility that we could all come and spend time at, that you could put in a little bit of money and ahead of time in the while we're building or for part of the build, but then that money isn't something you have to pay to come back in to use our facilities, and that's something on top of the research facility, because I want to do research with healing methods, but to have an actual healing and wellness center where there are people who are been doing these practices for a long time that can teach you how to do it yourself so that you can be independent, and this isn't about trying to make money. Anyway, I think we should be having this discussion more.
Right, more collectives, 100%. And Health and Wellness Center is a great place and way and topic to start.
I think I'm going to start one in Oregon so we can do psilocybin because it's legal here. So, and I'm actually going to start the process and do my application, become a facilitator. So come on down and I'll take you for a ride.
Heck yeah, sister. I like it. And well, there's going to be the weekend at BurnEye's Getaway Music Festival eventually. And that'll be another psilocybin psychedelic adventure.
I got the speakers for that. They're 4x4 and they have lighted platforms on top so you can dance on them. And they're about 250 watts. They're made for concerts. So nice and
beautiful.
loud.
I think you might be able to find somebody who knows a thing or two about lasers also.
Maybe, right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. That might be kind of hard.
Like, look at all of these mountain-topped, terraformed terrace, cities throughout South America and the Andes. And then there's also this throughout South Africa, like Michael Tellinger has documented and shown, and then of course all throughout Asia and Southeast Asia, China, everywhere, the terraced mountain agriculture, and half of it's abandoned.
The terraces are built on contoured in order to collect water from rainfall. That's why it's designed in that fashion. I've studied that completely.
It seems a lot of old world walled cities were terraced like that. Even Quebec City is not only a walled city, but it's got terraces as well. I believe there's 5 that you can see, but there's probably more that have been developed on top of and so on that are kind of hidden now.
You had to be able to defend the food, right?
Very true.
And it was structured water, electroculture on top of it. It's all designed into one.
That last one looked like a bus stop.
Look at that. That right there.
See, I kind of wonder if it's primary water.
That definitely is primary water.
Jeremiah brought up this guy that built a pyramid in Florida, and his pyramid was always flooding, and so was around the land because from the understanding was it was pulling that primary water up. So I wonder if pyramids are kind of built that way. Maybe the River Nile was supplied by the pyramid itself when it was in operation rather than it being in front of the pyramid. I don't know. It's just a...
You could be right. And how is that not... look at all the black charring, scarring, that was an apartment complex.
I bet you that was gorgeous in its time.
Oh yeah, with plants and stuff probably everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And there's just so much evidence of that, those buildings into the rock like that all over the Southwest and Colorado.
That dome structure, was that Celtic?
Which one?
Where's that?
So many.
That's insane.
Mexico?
This
one on the side of the mountain.
Oh yeah.
What is that?
This is a lift in China.
Wow.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then.
But look, it's the same red sandstone, and this is the one that has the crazy carvings in these giant pillar things. I got to get a better picture of it. Right?
That is really nice.
So this
That's
one
gorgeous.
apparently
Makes me wonder
they
if the
recovered these canals in the 50s or 60s with heavy machinery, but they dug out that they were filled in so that it was an ancient megalithic canal building that they weren't even functioning for hundreds of years. Until
of course,
dug
in
out.
modern times, it took heavy machinery to excavate
Exactly.
all this. How they do it in ancient times. Yeah, incredible. And it seems that the Netherlands and Holland has a lot of those beautiful, fully intact and still with the moats or the water around them, star forts and star cities that are still inhabited. There's villages in them and everything. They're beautiful.
Like the fact that half of humanity just accepts like the narrative, oh yeah, primitive people built this giant underground facility, apartment, dam complex for worship. Like what? No, like that.
Yeah,
like that looks like the remains.
That'd be
of
impossible.
some sort of functioning dam, power plant, something.
From my understanding, worship came in the 1600s. Before that, it was workship, wasn't it?
Workship, right? The workship at the workshops.
It would be where to live instead of where to, or where to be instead of where to.
Yeah, it's where you got fed, you got your education, so that you had your craft, sort of thing.
So this specific architecture and brickwork, stonework, where they have these minarets or whatever the heck these spherical
tubes.
Yeah, that, right? Like we don't build that anymore, and it's on all of the castles and star forts everywhere.
Can we build that anymore?
Right?
We even see a lot of that sort of thing on what they're calling armory buildings here in Canada and in the US too. You know, pretty much every city had an armory, and we see that type of design.
Yep.
Deactivated Stargate?
I would say.
It was probably like covered
Needs water.
with gold, silver, copper, and all sorts of metal sheets and nano transistors and circuitry at one point, I would imagine.
I think the actual carving itself is the circuitry, but you're right. I think it was covered in silver and gold.
As this was, mercury inside of it, and it was covered in not schist. Mica, yes.
Looks
mica.
a lot like the bent pyramid.
Yeah.
Completely covered. Yes, good point. It does resemble the angles of the bent pyramid a decent amount.
How much goes beneath the ground, I wonder?
All sorts of tunnels and mercury-filled tunnels they've found. We need LiDAR of all of that. Oops.
That's crazy. I love it.
This is the one Indonesian pyramid made with all the basalt blocks. Oh my god, I always get them messed up. The one Graham
or something?
No, that's the island one.
Yangpiang, I believe.
Yes. Say that again.
You know what we need to do?
Yangpiang, I think. But my pronunciation could be off because I'm just a Canadian fella, eh?
Just a Canadian, eh?
Yeah, eh?
So, you know,
take off, eh?
So, Guy will mispronounce stuff, but that's yeah.
Welcome, Bob Greenyer. Hello, good doctor, sir.
Hello.
Good morning,
Bob. Doctor, but thank you all the same.
Hello.
Glad to have you. We're going over geopolymer and pyramid technology and structure at the moment.
Very good.
I believe this is a pyramid mountain in the Siberian, Eastern Russian area. There's a whole complex.
Is it really a mountain?
Right? How much it resembles the step pyramids within the Grand Canyon pyramid complex.
Well, where's the expression to move a mountain from?
Good.
Interesting. It's something to do with Muhammad, isn't it?
Right? Because like that to that, that to that, right? And it's like if it was pre-cataclysm,
Maybe a step
pre-Younger
pyramid
Dryas.
under a lot of water.
Well, yeah, right. Like that's what I suspect. Like especially for this place, that they would have had it dammed up and like been like a giant lake city sort of thing that they would have been sailing about. Essentially.
Oot in a boot on a boat.
Bob, now that we have you though with the Geopolymer, have you seen the channel of Paul Cook's work, where he's a fellow United Kingdom citizen as yourself, but he's found that there's this red sandstone they call it, and then this white and red limestone layers they call, that he has found especially throughout the UK, but that they're also in Malta, they're also like in Jordan, where throughout Petra and stuff, and then I suspect it's the exact same stuff as this entire macro structure of the Grand Canyon, but that he claims and is finding evidence that it is all one giant geopolymer layer, and the evidence, especially in the UK and the UK cave systems, that it seemed like they're built leftover complexes and a layer from a past civilization.
I confess I haven't. I can understand how silicon dioxide in the form of sand and calcium carbonate could form an aggregate and binder mix, whether that's natural dissolved from water movement through sand grains carrying calcium carbonate making calcite, or whether it's a deliberate act. I don't know. I think both could occur, and so maybe something.
But now that I think about it, because of how you've shown with like the wind hex and like the theory that they would essentially just grind down the material from on the spot and then remake it as the geopolymer essentially, or cast it very close by, that then they a lot of this could be natural, and then specific areas could be built up or reused or made into.
Well, I mean, you could just look at cultures around the world, troglodyte cultures and so on. They take a natural formation and they cut into it, but they then might create facing stones out of chunks of the same material, or possibly to create a geopolymer out of the same material to, produce window frames and door and archways and stuff. But like, it makes much more sense. Like if I was to go to Mars, I would start by making my homes underground. Firstly, if you can create maybe a plasma-based, HHO-based system to create living accommodation and tunnels and service facilities and factories and stuff, if you could use the system that would vitrify the walls and seal them, and they're underground, you're then able to pressurize those with atmospheric pressure to live. So,
a lot less dangerous than exposed bubbles or domes outside and then fully.
Well, I mean, they're not having to create the building material. It's subtractive manufacturing, isn't it, as it were? And if you can use a technology that might make the material disappear, you don't even have to deal with the waste. So, there's a lot of reasons why you would use that kind of technology. So, but in terms of the geopolymers, I had a thought recently based on a recent presentation that I gave, that the wind hex appears to leave, for instance, metals magnetic, but it also leaves particles free flowing and spheroid. And so I thought that maybe this whole concept around extra relic neutrinos in materials causing the way electrons interact with each other to change on various levels, from removing van der Waals or Casimir forces all the way through to causing nucleon decay, and also making water molecules fall apart. If you can imagine, you're starting with, let's say, calcium carbonate, and you grind that up, if it is oversaturated, i.e. the atoms are too excited to be able to bind together, that might explain some of the free-flowing behavior coming out of a wind hex. It's almost like they're charged, and so they kind of partially repel each other. But just like the Russian cold metal forming that was reported in 1992 by Tom Bearden with a team that he sent over to Moscow, the group out of the former energetics research, they were able to turn, for instance, aluminium into jelly and then put it into a mold and then drain off the excitation. I wonder if you actually need to do anything other than take the powderized material, put it into a box and pound it into so it's well compacted, and potentially over time these charge clusters will dissipate either through moisture, natural moisture, or air moisture, or whatever, and it rebinds together. It might actually be that you don't actually have to do anything.
So metal injection molding without the sintering process, basically?
Yeah, it kind of self-sinters. So it's kind of like, there is a thing called compression welding. And so what have we got here?
Yeah, and there is vibration welding as well, which
is, well, the vibration welding
I
can be...
literally have a sample of aluminum jelly that I specifically have isolated to send you, and it is clear aluminum jelly.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'll be interested to see what that is. When you say aluminum or aluminium for us on this side of the pond, jelly, is it?
It is jelly that came and formed off of a literal roll of aluminum foil. It is the aluminum foil physically turned into this clear jelly.
But did you mix something like calcium hydroxide in there?
Just normal salt water that was below it, and I turned a roll of aluminum foil into an anode going into a bit of salt water, but the jelly formed above the water and on top of on the aluminum, out of the aluminum foil, dripping down in towards the water, but no exposure itself to the salt water. Just off of the aluminum foil, the jellies formed and that I collected.
Okay, well, when you put it into an SEM, you kind of have to have it dry. So, is it something that will dry?
Oh yeah, it should. I'll leave it out to let it.
Leave a sample so that it can dry. Obviously, then air's going to do something with it, but. Yeah, I mean, when you put it into an SEM, it puts it into a vacuum anyway, and it kind of dries it out.
I'll show you where it came from. Just give me a second. I'll hop outside. Okay. And
so, yeah, so who was talking about the vibration welding?
Oh, that was me. Simon.
Sorry, I don't... Who?
We
Simon.
have Simon.
Hi, Simon.
Gerald, WPG Enlightened for Truth as well. That was on last time with us.
Hey, Bob.
Hi, Gerald.
Frankie.
Yeah, I'm the guy who sent you the wind hex model the other day.
Which one?
The 3D printable one.
Oh, right. Okay, the one where you've now put a hole in the top, so it's starting to work.
Well, I still have to work on the nozzle dimensions because I want to use the soliton nozzles, but we have the equation for it. But I am not going to do that by hand a million times to get the dimensions right. No. So until someone makes a calculator so that I can just quickly punch the dimensions in, it's pretty much
that might be something there. I can encourage someone in the community to do. Yeah, it's going to be based. It's going to be based on your, all the parameters. But individuals will have different capabilities of being able to inject a certain amount of air. And that might be the key parameter for that particular individual. So
because you mentioned that the solitons they like to chase each other front to back, right? So
if you've got one in front, it basically, if you can imagine, it has this thing where it like an aerofoil. It's kind of like an aerofoil around all the way around it. So it has a low pressure on the inside. Slightly behind it, and then a high pressure on the outside, and that kind of pulls it through the medium, the fluid, whether that's the ether, a gas, a plasma, or a liquid, or indeed a solid if it's a non-charged structure that's being able to go through a solid. Behind it's got kind of like a zone where it creates a low pressure, and so
okay, I see what you mean.
So it's kind of like it's
pressure.
It's kind of like a well in which it falls into, and as it gets closer to it, it gets pulled in. And if you look at those sprites videos, you can see them coming in from the side and wrapping on and merging. You can see them coming from behind. And you'll be able to see air solitons done by divers where the same thing occurs.
Yeah, I was looking at a thing, German project where it was basically a giant vortex cannon, but they filled it with very fine coal dust. And so when they fired it, the coal dust would ignite and it would keep feeding the vortex and keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was for anti-aircraft use.
Right. Well, these. If you've seen divers underwater create a soliton, they're able to knock over stones that have piled up underwater at quite some distance, and so the structures are very stable. Sorry, what?
I just want to interject for a question. I'm sorry. It's for Bob. It's Gerald here. Is the Windex? Is it size dependent? Does it have to be to those parameters that we originally talked about, or can it be reduced in size to some degree?
My view on the size is there will be quantization and resonance involved, and so
that I understand.
Yeah. So if you look at, for instance, the exotic vacuum objects, they're typically like 1 micron, 5 micron, 20 micron, 100 micron, or something like that, right? Because they're kind of fractal. And if you can imagine, and so I don't know whether it's that important when you get to a very big one. It might be just very important when it's very small, because you're not looking for it to be too perfect when it's that big, because you're after a very, very weak effect. You're not trying to do nucleon exchange or nuclear decay. It's a much more subtle effect. But what we're looking at actually at the moment is, the Windhex air blowers are coming soon, and the other parts are coming. So I'm going to have an update probably this coming week.
Awesome.
And hopefully, what Tony has done is he's configured the new design, which you're going to be able to have a look at in the next couple of days, to allow for, if necessary, adding heat in there and adding moisture. I don't think we're going to see really much of anything exciting until there's some means of having charged particles in there. And with the dry, cold air coming out of the compressed air tanks, and only for a small amount of time, you don't have the ability to build up charge and charge vortices, which is necessary for creating the toroidal moment. So I don't know whether Simon, maybe, I know Henk has found that you only get the air coming out the top if you inject quite a lot of air, and then you reach some kind of equilibrium with.
That's why I wanted to put a Tesla valve on the top end, so that way the air can only go up and not down the chimney. And that way you're going to have
these are interesting additions. But the one thing you must do when you're trying to replicate what already works is to never add your own flair. Yeah. Always assume to do exactly what the thing did that worked.
So for the size of the Windhex, I'm pretty well convinced that the entire cavity it basically functions as a Helmholtz resonator. So like the entire thing is like stretching outwards and then compressing inwards at a certain rate. And that's going to be dictated by the internal volume, but also the size and the length of the nozzle at the bottom. So you could tune it that way, but you're going to have like a very limited range depending on it.
We've also had discussions of putting an electromagnetic coil at the top of the opening of the Windex, and maybe adding some form of electrostatic force to it. So,
or we could throw
Interesting.
some electret in there and have that ground up. See what that does.
Or just a straight discharge.
A spark gap or something.
Yeah. Hold on a sec. I've got to flip my burgers. I'll be back in a minute. Otherwise, I'm going to be eating charcoal. Give me a sec.
Of course.
It sounds delicious.
No worries, Bob, and thank you for joining in while you can. And I love burgers. Good old Alberta beef. Miss,
I hope they're cheeseburgers.
I just am getting my little electrolysis reactor going here to demonstrate a couple things while we have the good Bob with us. But I also have to step outside to go grab that aluminum jelly mix. I don't even know what to call it. I guess it's an electrode.
I wanted to show. Never mind. I was going to show these photos and we can do it later, but
no. By all means, please do right now.
Well, it's a little bit back to right before Bob showed up, and I changed subject. Is it everybody okay with our ADHD layout here?
That's what it's all about. We bounce all over the map. You never know what dots we're going to connect. So, by all means, sister.
Well, that's how we encourage variety.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this, that it's kind of important, and that to give people the perspective that even if you think like you just have the creative mindset, to sort of activate that more logical mindset and challenge yourself. That's something I've done. And this is that Heart Mountain area where I found those circles. And I was going through some of my old photos of the edges. I just thought it was really interesting after you're looking at some of the pyramid stuff. I know it's not exactly in the shape, but there's a lot of layering and plateauing in this area. This is considered part of the Modoc Plateau. And I'm very curious about that structure in that area. There's a lot of that red sand. There's a lot, what I'm talking about, that you were talking about. Anyway, Bob's back, so let's get back to what we were talking about. I just thought it would be a brief interlude.
I don't want to take up your mind time.
Oh, no. No, Bob, please.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so in my view, we know it works. How is it working? I believe it's necessary to have the charges in there. When you're talking about this at the extremely small level, your things like benzene rings and perovskite structures are creating these, in chlorophyll, there's areas of chlorophyll, they're creating this toroidal moment. And it might be that it's more intense when it gets down to a resonance structure that's very, very small like that. And it might be stimulated in the case of chlorophyll by specific frequencies of light and so forth. So, and probably not green, because that's the bit we see. Green is the most useless color to a plant, because that's the bit we see.
That part's for us, I guess.
that bit is, yeah. And in water, red is obviously the most important, and infrared. And we know that because when you go lower in water, everything's blue. That's the bit that water doesn't want to use. So yeah, it's always the colors you see which are the useless colors to the thing that is making use of color.
Don't they mostly use like blue and purple and red?
Sorry, the water, like easy water, is stimulating.
For plants, don't they use mostly like the purple and red ends of the spectrum for?
Yeah. Well, again, I think it might be something to do with water.
I also wanted to bring up that there's been a lot of discussion about this red-blue shift now in the hyperdimensional anti-gravity and plasma phenomenon discussions going on if we're talking about colors. Do you got any thoughts on that, Bob?
I certainly have a view on red and green because they are complementary colors in color space. And if you look at the Valery Zatalepin presentations from Sochi 2018 on the MFMP YouTube channel, you can see where there are natural and man-made ball lightning structures. And they spin at some ridiculous speed. I can't remember offhand, but it's 50,000 somethings, and I think it's not millimeters per second. It's incredible speed, such that the argument is it's actually changing. It's red and blue shifting, you might say, the frequencies of light. I actually think it's polarizing them, and I think it's polarizing them because if you look at a toroid like that, okay, like that. Although the center of the toroid's that way, a fractal toroid would be here and going the other way. So you'd have a toroidal moment coming towards you and a toroidal moment going away. And the reason I say that is because when you look at, we have this thing called the Vega Valley, which came from a stack of brass sheets in a Vega experiment. And in one part of that, it produced like a floodplain. And in that floodplain, there was like a blotch patch where you had these hexagons of green, and then hexagons of red, and then hexagons of green, and then hexagons of red in lines. And this is an 1868 or whatever Maxwell mesh of superconducting electrons. Which, if you look at up-to-date supercomputer versions of it, this is what it should create. But it's spinning one way, and it's affecting something to do with that copper, probably, or the copper and zinc in there, but probably copper, such that when the light interacts with it, it gives green light back, and the other side it gives red light back. So I think whatever's going on is it's leaving a signature in the atomic structure. Now, when that one is caused by ball lightning, showing this red and green to reflected light, and it's not changing it's basically doing some polarization to the light in some weird way, and it might be because the intense magnetic moments left in non-magnetic material, i.e., the copper is affected by a magnetic field, and this is how I believe you can see some strange radiation tracks because I have a polarizer on my microscope. I had a hunch that it would have this intense magnetic field and it would leave the atoms oriented, the nuclei of the atoms oriented as it translated through the material. And when you look at it under under a normal microscope and you do use a polarizing filter, something that's not there suddenly appears. So I think it might be something to do with that. So I'd encourage people to look at the. In fact, I'll find that link now and I'll put it into the chat. Chat with everyone in the studio.
So Bob,
go on.
I could speak to polarization through a lot of my experiments that I do, and I've got multiple videos on YouTube on that when it comes to magnetic polarization. When I spin, basically the coils create spin through its geometrical form. Because it's bifilar, there's a certain balance in there, and the polarization happens directly in the center of the open core of the coil and on the outsides. But on the outsides, it's polarized in the opposite direction. So it's interesting the way that
I remember you talking about this, yes.
So
and
what
as
I'm
it's
showing, oh, sorry to interrupt. Finish, Gerald, and then I'll describe the picture.
Well, I was just going to say, as it's polarized in the opposite direction on the outside, it's also spinning in the opposite direction as the inner core of that coil spin.
You actually did a physical demonstration, I think, of that, right?
Yeah, I've done a few. Yeah, I actually showed. I froze a coil while it was being pulsed, and if you look at the video when I flip the brick of ice, you can see the waveform pattern show up in the coil and the ice block itself. It's pretty interesting.
Okay, wow.
So I'll let, yeah, it's something that I can definitely show you in the future.
Do you have the
Excellent.
link? I'll open it up and show it. And I also got the link that you posted, Bob. I'll open that up in a sec. In this is an anode that I have that's completely just same copper wire, triple solenoid through. And in this one, it's a green-blue alteration. Usually it's blue-red alteration that it forms. And going down below the blue, submerged into the water, you can't see it, or the electrolyte salt water, it actually goes green again and alternates again. And that it does these alternating, usually red, blue, but here it's green, blue, patches on the copper, and that there's literally nothing changing between, like why is it causing like an oxidized reaction on portions of it, alternating usually in this red color, or in this case green instead of red, and then always the blue on the opposite opposing segments, but that some must have like more hydrogen, be like a hydroxide instead of just an oxide or something, whatever it's doing, but that it's doing it in these segments.
I mean, without understanding particularly the chemicals you've got in there, or I wouldn't.
It'll do it in pure air as well, the copper, and why do we make magnets as red and blue south and north poles? And is essentially is nature doing that itself in these fields, in the oxidization and hydrides that it forms, and corresponding color relation potentially too?
I could certainly imagine that at some point in the past, someone saw something at either end of something that was magnetic, that was red and blue, and maybe decided that would be a good way to represent it. And maybe someone could look into the etymology of the coloring of magnets. But certainly, if you take something like the juice from a red cabbage, and you put you try and electrolyze it, you'll end up with some purple on one side and blue on the other, like reddish on the one side and blue on the other, right? You know that experiment, the classic experiment to use red cabbage water, and then you electrolyze it.
Oh, right, where it's
right, like in third grade science class.
Well, it's exactly the way it was originally done. That's where I had a presentation on this, where the word ion came from someone looking at, I think it was Faraday, doing that electrolysis and saying the two counter-rotating vortices that form. He said, "Oh, well, that looks like an ionic column," and so that's why ions are called ions. Okay, so I'm going to eat my burger now. I'm going to leave you that link, but if you look at that link, you will see that Zatalepin talks about...
Oh, I was muted. Sorry. Thank you so much for joining in, Bob. But quickly, before you go, 30 more seconds, I will run out with my camera outside to show you the aluminum that...
Okay, before you go, you can see on the image when you look at this video that in 2009, natural ball lightning, because of the red and blue, but it looks green to me. But anyway, red and blue shift on either side of the natural ball lightning. They're estimating that the rotation speed is 100,000 kilometers per second. And in a man-made one, where they've still got red and green, but it looks like red and green to me, but let's say red and blue. It's got 50,000 kilometers per second. So that is, they're looking at the speed of that rotation based on the color shift.
And that's a radius of like 50 microns maximum-ish.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of information in that one presentation. Okay, so run outside, because, yes.
Because like if you're running a lathe, for instance, we have what's called a constant surface speed, where the further away from the center, you're going to have a different speed at the surface where the cutter is, intersecting the part. So like if you're getting that kind of rotation at the size of an EVO, that is absolutely ridiculous rippums.
Well, you know, the presentation that we gave last week with a potential structure, toroidal structure of an electron, the charge is supposedly moving around at the speed of light. So
that was next level. And I hope you don't mind that I've been sharing and replaying lots of your lectures and streams on my 7 and 8 hour long multi-real science streams.
You know what? We're an open project, so you know, if we were going to care about that, we should have complained about it sooner.
Right. Fair enough, right? I guess that kind of goes with being open source.
Yeah.
Okay, so here you can see the top of the aluminum foil where it's crusted, got a little salty. Then as soon as into the jar area, it starts to form the anode reaction and breaking down into the different ormus and monoatomics, and that it's starting to reform the gel-like clear aluminum drips off of it, and that's what I harvested the aluminum clear jelly from, is the dripping aluminum coming off of the
Could it be aluminum or aluminium hydroxide?
Quite possibly, as it's literally
that would probably be my first guess. But my burger is calling, so I'm going to have to apologize and say goodbye.
Fair enough, good sir.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you for sharing that with me.
Much love, and doing electroculture on my purple, silver, gold, and green blue
awesome
monatomic golds. Have a good day, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Enjoy your burger.
Before you go, I have that. Oh, too late. No worries.
We gotta let the good professor eat his meal while it is still warm. And on that note, we are 3 hours, just past 3 hours, 33 minutes. We are 3 hours, 34 minutes in, and I need to get to work today and go plant all of these pots with the seeds to start testing these alchemy waters. Last thoughts, everyone?
Well, admittedly, everything Bob was talking about is way above a guy's pay grade, but it was fascinating stuff. So that was really cool. That was
cool to think about the color correlation that he was getting into, and the polarization concept, and so that was great.
Well, it ties into the water discussion we were having earlier too, and how the water is affected through different frequencies, whether it's sound frequencies or electrical frequencies. So yeah, really, really super interesting stuff.
Have you seen the guys that have, I don't know how, like, I've just been seeing a lot more videos of this, and of course you always have to be skeptical, but, you know, we've seen some potential capabilities of like long-term practice of Qigong, and these guys are standing out in like, not giant bodies of water necessarily, like little rivers or pond type situations, and they're showing them doing their movements to, you know,
to gather chi,
bring in the work on their own energy, and then they start to do this thing where they start to like push at the water, and they're like showing the direction that they're getting it, and all of a sudden you'll see the ripples show up, little light breeze sometimes, potentially. Obviously that could be correlated with the weather, but it is a little bit interesting because I've seen them move position and then move it to another area. So I feel like things we mess with experimentally as well. I mean, some of us could, I mean, practicing, I don't know how many of you practice some meditation, but start to kind of do some of these of our own experiments. I'm starting to like a long time understanding of how meditation can be very different for people. And
scientific testing of remote viewing,
the
streaming, and like live meditation or like collective conscious streams I want to start experimenting with, probably especially on the solstices and equinoxes, full moon, stuff like that.
Yes.
Well, I've seen something similar to what Sra was just talking about. I think it was in the earlier mid-90s. There used to be a television show called Martial Arts World Tour. And the host of the show would just go to different countries to sort of showcase the different martial arts, where there was sort of territorial differences, cultural differences, and whatnot. But there was one episode where they're talking about the Qigong, and there were these guys that they were using their voices actually to cause ripples in big colanders of water. And they were standing, 30 yards away. And just by projecting their voice after gathering chi, they could produce ripples in water. And one guy was actually able to disable birds in flight, small birds in flight, with his voice. Not kill them, but actually just cause them to basically crash land or have to land, or much like if you whistle at a bat, you could throw it off course, kind of the same idea. And one guy was saying he could kill insects like large grasshoppers and locusts just by using his trained voice. It was pretty incredible stuff.
There's so much more new data coming out with like voice vibration and like a cat's purr and how it heals. So like how humans can create their own healing with their own mouth and throat vibration, like throat singing.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Gerald, you were going to say something.
Oh, that's all good. I completely gapped it. I went squirrel on you guys. Sorry.
That's my job.
Well, there is the Inuit throat singing and the Mongolian throat singing as well, right? That
exactly.
One of the theories that I've heard about that is because they had such a limited diet, that part of that throat singing helps to heal them and compensate for certain parts of the diet that are lacking, so it doesn't affect them physically or physiologically.
Well, Scandinavians have the death growl as well, which is apparently a very historical musical style that's several hundred years old at the very least.
Yeah.
Who is this, Simon? Sorry, who was that?
The Scandinavian death growl, like in
okay,
and all that stuff.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I would do it, but I don't want to do that right in everybody's ears right now.
Kind of want to hear it though.
Sound moves energy.
There is a lot of science behind this, because this is like what I've gotten into. My background was a sleep tech for 13 years, and there's science behind singing and the didgeridoo, and you're using that circle. It's a concept of this type of breathing you're doing and the vibration you're giving off. And so they've actually been shown that you're strengthening your throat muscles in that area, providing you with better breathing, and then in turn rectifying some people's apnea if they have it, in a mild to moderate, if it's not like related to a direct obstruction or something. So there's real legit, this all connects. That's what's so fascinating.
Right? It's all interconnected. And that's what makes these panels and discussions so epic, crucial, and important.
Callum, who I haven't seen him in a bit, but he's got he was talking about how he starts his day where he's like does like a series of humming, and I can't. You guys know me. Sometimes I fumble over myself. But anyway, he puts the vibration into certain parts. So like he starts up in the nasal cavity, then he starts in the more central, then he tries to get more into the throat, and then even into the diaphragm, so that he's resonating those different vibrations, like
the sacred tones, right?
And if you guys see it, we used to do a lot more theatrical community type activity like that together, a lot more singing, a lot more dancing, so vibration, movement, all those things. And I'm
really into I'm really into blues music, and there's blues harmonica players, and in the blues, a harmonica is called a blues harp, and you play it slightly differently than in, let's say, traditional country or country western music or even rock and roll, where you do a lot more inhaling, or what they call drawing in through the harmonica as opposed to blowing through the harmonica. And they actually extend the back of their throat as they're drawing in to what they call bending the note. And it's meant to emulate the African pentatonic scale, which was built upon emulating the human voice using instruments and trying to replicate that as much as they possibly can through bending notes with either stringed instruments or, in this case, harmonicas. And it creates, it brings it down. I'm not a musical theorist, but it brings it down a semitone or a quarter tone or something like that. And what it does is it creates a different mood in the music. So if they bend the tone down, it creates more of a somber, melancholy form of the note, which is why it's kind of known as blues. It makes you feel blue. But then if they bend other notes on the harmonica or strings on the guitar, it creates an uplifting, more spiritually enhancing note in the music. So that's why some forms of blues are kind of sad and melancholy, and other forms of blues make you want to get up and dance and are more what they call jump blues. So it's very fascinating, again, how music and different wavelengths and frequencies can affect your environment and affect your, the outer environment as well as your inner environment.
Definitely. That was a really great topic to bring up. And yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm kind of a nerd on the blues stuff. I don't know. It's a guy's thing.
Yeah, we're all pretty geeky here. It's wonderful. Thank you, Bernie, for bringing us together. I think he froze.
Yeah, I think Bernie froze.
I think we lost him.
But yeah, thanks, Bernie. Oh, there he is. Yeah, you're back, Bernie, but you're muted.
Hey, there we go. I can speak again. It finally gave me the option to unmute. Reloaded and it crashed. Everything went completely black for a minute. Okay. I love you all. We keep it weird. That's what it's all about. I will quickly share everybody's channels before we end this stream right at the 4-hour mark. But before then, here's MontanaMegalist.com. Look at this. A star seeding ET conversation with a human. You got what looks like some sort of, maybe reptoid, giant, something or other, and a straight up, almost Benjamin Franklin looking character face into those rocks. I find that really fascinating. But I see all sorts of these sort of megaliths around Alberta, which is just north of this, the exact same area, and especially these sorts, and that they are dolems, and they're like the Siberian giant ones, and these massive megalithic wall ones, especially these style. There's so many in southern Alberta that I want to check out and hike. And that they all apparently, when you do go up, have these dolom cave and different giant faces and whatnot, leftover remnants everywhere, and especially the ridiculously large-sized megalithic walls that are getting to the point of undeniability that they are intelligently built.
I love watching their videos. They seem like just really sweet people, and it'd be fun to go on one of their tours. I'm gonna get my passport, Bernie, so we got to do some cool trips. We should get some huge groups together. It'd be super fun to all go to this.
Right? Oh, we definitely are doing a meetup here. But first, we're going to do the Medicine Hat Badland Guardians, and that is going to happen this month 100%. It's all coming out at once now. That's Dragon's Temple. Where's the Eagle Amphitheater? See, like, look at these. This right here, this is exactly what I'm talking about at Mount Yamaniska. It's literally at the mountain top, just pathways, intersecting pathways of this exact same geopolymer or megalithic blockwork, and even more block and right angles than what are being demonstrated here. And look, Dr. Sam there. The medicine wheels also gonna be checking them out in this area as well. There's Canada's Stonehenge that's at least 4,500 years old, also close to the Medicine Hat Badland Guardians. And look at these, glacial erratics. Glacier, the ice just magically melted so that everything could perfectly balance on top of each other, right?
Perfectly. It's like nature's way.
Here we go. Eagle Mount Amphitheater. This actually reminds me as an almost identical feature mountain as the backside of the Three Sisters peaks in Canmore, which I've apparently is the intersection of several different ley lines from pictures I've seen of it. I think from Google Earth we looked at it, as well as some hikers photos that we could zoom in on. It looked like all sorts of actual different seats, walls, carvings, and there's legends of the Three Sisters actually being carved into the backside of the mountains there, of three indigenous native princesses, which I would also like to verify and explore someday soon. So there's a whole summer of exploration coming up. And it just keeps getting better and
super cool.
Would you tip to
comments that it's like we need to be touching each other. I know it's kind of off subject, but I actually just was with my neighbor. I had to go to the emergency room a couple times, and I did Reiki on her while we were in there, and was able to see in real time her blood pressure drop. So I agree. We need to hug each other more. There's actually science behind that too. So just saw that comment. I want to put that out there. Sorry, I'm done now. Let's say goodbye.
Oh, good sister. And that is Esra, aka Mindful Exposures. And here we go. There's your channel. It should be displaying. Is it? Oh, no. Come on. There we go. There we go.
Okay. My neighbor's got him watching there. I don't have a ton of videos up, guys, but actually I do have videos that are unlisted, and I'm showing people to kind of get their input before I start going live with all my stuff. So I will have, I just did a video on the Revigator or radium water. So I'm kind of excited to do that. I could show you guys. It's 5 minutes, but I know BurnEYe, you need to get going now.
I got to get to work. I am sorry.
Yeah, we should show it another time. So anyway,
next episode, 100%.
Thank you for sharing my stuff.
Go check it out. There's
go check out Bob's channel.
Bob's channel, Martin Fleischman Memorial Project. Then we have William's channel, Antediluvian American, as well as Frankie's channel in New West Reset. And I gotta pull up WPG Enlightened for Truth too, as Gerald's channel as well.
Definitely also subscribe to Gerald's channel. Good content.
Just because I know somebody in the audience is thinking of asking but can't, what's your dog's name?
This is actually my neighbor's dog. I'm watching him because she was in and out of the emergency room, so I just. But this is Kingston. We call him the gentleman dog, and he's a cattle dog and Chihuahua. He's super cool. He's really, really well behaved. He listens really well.
It's a cool name too, actually. Kingston. I like that.
Isn't it?
Crashed. Oh dear.
And my dog's name is Ladybug. She's sleeping right now.
I am back. I've got to go to work. I love you all.
Thank you.
On the next one.
Please donate to Bernie so he doesn't have to work.
Everybody. Thanks, Bernie.
Have a good one, everybody.
Please do donate and love you all. Ta-ta. Catch you on the next one. Subscribe to New West Reset, WPG Enlightened for Truth, Mindful Exposures, Martin Fleischman Memorial Project, of course, and everybody else that has a Peter.